Hey, what up YouTube, and welcome back to a new video with Rams Fan YT. In today's video, we will be looking at my predictions that I made at the beginning of the season. I made 6 videos, in total, going down from the Premier League to the National League North-South. And so I'm going to look at them. Did I get them right? Did I get them wrong? Was I close with some of them, or was I extremely far off? I know the Premier League ones were a bit of a joke, which I made. But we'll start with the National League North, I think is what we went first. And I put as the bottom position, Farsley Celtic. Where did they actually finish come the end of the season? Was 20th, so I wasn't too bad. I thought they would be within that sort of picture. The season before, they also avoided relegation with the skin of their teeth on the last day of the season. Second season running. We'll make that a third season running now. They are experts, clearly, at being able to survive in the league on the last day. And by days, I generally thought last day of the season they were going to be relegated. I thought Blyth had it in the bag, but they didn't. So I thought it was an inevitable relegation. I'm sorry, but they somehow managed to prove me wrong again. 23rd, I went with Southport because they'd previously been a bit dodgy. They were 17th, so they still weren't great this season. Weren't relegated, but they weren't the best. I mean, they have declined. Nobody can deny that they have declined. And, I mean, it was a bit of a rash prediction. I will be honest, the relegation was a bit of a rash thing to say. But they generally are going on a slow, steady decline, and something needs to stop, whether that's a manager or whether that's new owners, I don't know. But they were close to being relegated this season at one point, but did get it back together. 22nd, I went with Boston. Now, this is the worst prediction of them all because they got promoted via the playoffs, as you probably will know. And generally, they did improve their defence. They brought in Bostwick, which was a good move for them to make as a whole. I think in terms of, I want to apologise to the Boston fans for saying that was going to happen. But you know what? You went out there and proved me completely and utterly wrong. Worst prediction so far. 21st went with Scarborough. Interesting, that one. They actually finished 13th, so mid-table, not really anywhere near relegation. I didn't think that they'd actually finish mid-table. I thought they were either going to be on the upper end of the table fighting for promotion or battling between relegation, and I didn't actually consider those going to be an either-or. I don't know if I still hold out with a Northern Prem standard, but they're probably not that much difference between Northern Prem and the National League North anyway. If you look at the teams which come up each season, the ones which tend to be struggling are the ones which come from the further southern-based leagues. The Southern League Central or the Isthmian League, as was the case with Bishop Stortford for some reason, whereas the ones who come from the Northern Prem do typically do much better. So they've actually proved me wrong there, and maybe I should put some more respect on the Northern Prem team's name. 20th, I went with Bishop Stortford, and they did finish 24th. I should have gone with them being relegated. I actually thought that their home stadium would have been much more of a fortress with the challenging travels that it would have taken to get there, especially teams like Blyth or South Shields, Spennymoor, and teams all the way up in the northeast are much more longer journeys to be able to get down to Bishop. So I think in terms of Stortford, they've done really bad this season, and there's no way of covering it up. And if they do get promoted again, I think we all wish they were in the National League South. I don't think anybody, even Bishop fans, would want to return to the National League North, although even so, I doubt they'd be much better in the National League South either. 19th, I've gone with Blyth, and they finished in 21st. So it was a bit of a bottle job at the end of the season. I think we can all sort of accept that they should have finished 19th, but they sort of bottled it, and they've not been great all season. And I thought they were sort of lucky Blythe sort of thing where they just scraped survival every season, and it did look like it for much of this season that they were just going to be able to do it again. But they actually ended up slightly worse. That horrible run at the end of the season, especially, that really was their undoing. I saw them in the FA Cup against Worksop in the first leg, and when you're drawing against a team in league below and were absolutely outclassed for about 70 minutes of that game, then for me, I do think level 7 is probably where their level is now, and that's been proved by them being relegated. 18th, Buxton. Yeah, they finished 14th, so I'm not too unhappy with that. I mean, did slightly better than I expected. Resilience defence is really what they built their team upon. And you've got to bear in mind, I'm making these predictions weeks before the season even starts. So, I mean, at least 5 weeks before. So it is a bit of guesswork. Partly, you don't know which players going to be brought in. Changes happen throughout the season, of course, in non-league. But I actually thought they did much better than I expected, because that close-knit attitude still worked. And the manager was actually very, very good. Although I already see that they have several new players coming in, so we'll see how they do next season. 17th, Tamworth. I apologise, but I did not expect Tamworth, and I don't think most people did, to absolutely storm the National League North. Best defensive record with only conceding 29 goals. Absolutely phenomenal all season. Congratulations for the team from Staffordshire. That has been an amazing thing, and I think that momentum from the Southern League really carried on this year. And to be fair, they're not a stranger to the conference as it was then, but the National League themselves. I'm not sure how long this momentum can continue, but built on a solid defence, I don't think they'll be back next season, but we'll see. I'm going to make my predictions a bit later, but I thought it would have been a bit more difficult getting that step up, especially since there's not that many West Midlands teams in the National League North at the moment. I mean, Hereford, that's one, Rushall Olympic, but other than that, there's not too many nearby clubs. Brackley, I suppose, isn't too far away, but neither's Banbury, but there's still a bit of a distance as well. So they did very well, both at home, which was an absolute fortress, but also away, where they managed to get points where they needed to. 16th, I went with Chorley, and they did actually finish in 4th position. I shouldn't really have slept on Chorley. They are always challenging for playoffs. Clearly, they make smart signings. I think that's the thing. It's one of them stadiums which is a proper sort of old school non-league ground that is sort of packed in amongst the terraces and real atmosphere there. So I do think it's a good club for players to join if they want an authentic non-league experience, or if you're a fan in the Lancashire area as well. 16th, I sort of didn't imagine that some of the players that they got would have went to Chorley. I thought the other clubs in the area, I mean, the league above has got some teams, Oldham and Rochdale particularly, thought they would have been some big attractive moves. Although they could have, I don't know if they probably did, but I'm not sure. I've not looked at the ins and outs. But I think they probably rely on the loan market from some of them Lancashire clubs like Accrington or Fleetwood, Blackpool, them sort of teams. But well done, Chorley. Proved me wrong. Didn't quite get promoted, but realistically, would you have been the best team to have gone up via the playoffs? I'm not sure. 15th, I went with Gloucester. This was wrong. Gloucester finished 23rd, and I was actually quite surprised with Gloucester getting relegated this season. I mean, last season was a fluke. I mean, that's proved by being relegated. I think being able to it's an impossible league to predict, and I think Gloucester being relegated just sums it up all, really. I know they had to host a few other games from other clubs, but realistically, that new manager bounce just never came, and that squad cohesion just really would ruin us. They went on awful runs all the way throughout the season, and only Bishop were really worse. And let's be honest, I mean, did Gloucester ever look like they were going to stay up this season? Not really. There was a few moments of brightness, but not much to write home about. 14th were Rushall Olympic, and actually finished 19th. They did marginally worse than I expected them. I hadn't really paid that much attention to that sort of league before, so I thought maybe a bit more winning mentality. They had a close-knit squad. I mean, I do think that Rushall won't be relegated. I think they have managed to get that extension needed, and their ground is up to scratch. So I know that was a tight deadline sort of thing that they had looming over them at one part of the season. But it will be interesting for me to see if they can continue doing better next season, or whether it's going to be another tough season in store next time. 13th, Peterborough Sports. Now that they're an interesting team. They actually finished 15th, so I'm going to say that's pretty accurate. I predicted them for mid-table. Again, I still don't really see the long-term prospects at Peterborough's second team. I think they have slightly improved the stadium, but I'm not sure. And the fan base really, I know, isn't the greatest. So realistically, where do I see Peterborough Sports in the next few years? I have absolutely no idea. They can either be promoted or relegated or just stay roughly where they are and just plod along in the National League North for goodness knows how long. But I do think mid-table is probably where I expect them to be for a while now. 12th, Alfreton. They did finish in the playoffs. I shouldn't have slept on them. They are serial playoff challengers, of course. And they got 80 points as well. I just had a hunch, and that hunch was wrong. I think that they have been one of them sides which have really unleashed the weapons of set pieces and long throws and stuff like that. I watched on National League TV the playoff against Boston, and that was, even though it was quite a dull draw for most of it, it was some phenomenal set pieces, and I can really see that being an asset going forward if they keep hold of them key players who can absolutely launch them balls into the box. So I think experts at Route 1, and that knows how to grind out results in this league. So I shouldn't have slept on you, Alfreton. Good luck with next season. 11th, Warrington Town. They actually finished 12th, so pretty much dead on. Yeah, I think they hit the ground running. They really did. I think at one point they were with an outside shout of reaching the playoffs, and then that sort of fizzled out a bit. But that positivity was there. And I mean, Warrington Rylands are breathing down their neck all the while going through up their leagues right now, aren't they? They've still got quite a decent talent pool they can select from. It is the biggest club in Warrington still. I know it's more a rugby town, but even if you any interest in football at all, and they have good, strong gate receipts as well. So that is always good to see for a club. I wish them the best in the future as well. 10th, Curzon. Well, Curzon actually finished 7th, so better than I expected. I didn't quite think they'd reach the playoffs. I mean, they're always competitive in this league. They're always doing much better than I expect. I always put them down, and then they actually overachieve. So they are probably that 7th position, which is where they finished. Probably that one which always looks like they shouldn't be in the playoffs, but are for some reason. And I think I will back them next year to maybe reach the playoffs. I need to do some more research. Obviously, some things will change between now and my predictions, but I do think that prediction wasn't too bad to make. 8th, my only one I got dead on, dead right, South Shields. I'm proud with this one. I mean, I've been to the club a couple of times this season already, just gone by, and I think I'm going to be interested. Obviously, I hope the owner is cancer. I think it's cancer's treatment goes well, and I hope that I know he's trying to sell the club. I hope they get good buyers, and I wish the best for the owner in this trying circumstances, and obviously his family as well. But the club has really bonded together, and they're regularly getting almost 2,000. They're getting 1.8k in, which is absolutely amazing. Lovely bit of banter between them and the Boston fans when I saw them with Boston coming away, and they had to even segregate the fans at one point. Great sort of potential with this club. I'm glad that I got it dead on because I thought they'd be challenging for playoffs, and they were for most of it. I just didn't see them realistically finishing in there. Yeah, I think South Shields is one to keep an eye on because obviously the investment can change hugely, but they've got the infrastructure already laid down for being a club which definitely can at least reach the National League, if not the EFL. But we'll see. I'm not holding out for anything until we're seeing what the future is with the owner. 7th, Banbury. Right, what was I thinking here? They finished 22nd. It was woeful. I thought that if they naturally evolved, they would have been top end of the table. They had a massive rebuild with a good blend of youth and experience, but I think that massive rebuild also at the same time took apart the whole structure which was holding the club together, which meant that it was really either one of two ways. Either actually bonded and worked really well, but actually what happened is they nosedived, I think is the word I'm looking for, into a relegation battle that didn't ever look like it was going to go their way at the end of it. I think that they could. It's interesting. I think if you looked at the statement when they got relegated by the owner, it seemed to imply that they were going to stick with it and try and build themselves up again in the Southern League. So I think that's probably for the best. I don't know if it'll be an immediate return. They may reach the playoffs, but I don't think it'll be a straight win. But I do think that they are a club that has got ideas of how football should be done, and maybe in the future they can come back to this level. 6th, Brackley. They did actually finish a bit higher than that. They finished 3rd in that sort of top 3 position, which you want to be in. You want to be first, but if you're not first, you want to be 2nd or 3rd, so you're already seeded into the semis. They did what they had to do exactly. They had the mantle out, reached the playoffs. That's where they reached. Their managerial experience, I always was waffling about at the beginning, but I didn't think he was as good to be able to get them a top 3 finish. I think it sort of proved in the playoff final, in a way, that when they came into it, they didn't quite manage to grind out that result. But I do fully expect to see Brackley at the top end of the season, and someday soon we will see them in the National League. 5th, I went with Spennymoor, interestingly. They actually finished 9th. I don't think it's a disappointing season for Spennymoor. I think I had just a bit more heightened expectations. I think they improved a lot on last season. If you look at it, they weren't ever realistically going to reach the playoffs, weirdly, throughout the season. But they did always look like a team which, on any given day, could turn it on. And their new manager certainly created a new atmosphere. It created positivity within the club from Durham, County Durham, that is. And I think next season could be an outside shout for playoffs. So maybe I was only one season too early. Fourth, Kings Lynn Town. Well, they actually finished 18th, so it's a bit disappointing for the Linnets. I thought they were one of the best teams within this league, which shows how much I actually know. I thought, nice young squad. They last season just missed out on this title because it was a sluggish start, and that was roughly where they're gonna end up this year. But I think the inexperience of Mark Hughes really paid dear, and that was a critical error. Appointing someone with inexperience did mean that from pretty much the get-go, the season looked like it was going to be a bit of a struggle. But the comfortable playoff position I was talking about never fruition, and it was more looking over their shoulders than anywhere up the league for most of it. Third, I went with Hereford, and they finished as usual in mid-table 11th. I actually thought this was an incredibly hard one to predict. They had a completely new squad coming into the season. Didn't change much at the end of the day, but I thought there were some very strong players that they brought in. They're probably about this level. I think they proved that this season. I thought, but I think Hereford fans are always very, very good fans. So I think it's Edgar Street, isn't it? But I may have got that wrong. Correct me if I am. But I think that is one of the old school stadiums that used to host Football League back in the day with a former Hereford United. It's one of them teams that always seem to be just about unable to gather a run of form when it's needed to get into the playoffs, but that they're going to make up the National League as a competitive entity. The other one I got dead on was Scunthorpe United in second. Now, a lot of people were going to be like, Scunthorpe guaranteed win the league. Bosh. Yeah, I didn't quite think that was going to happen. I mean, they were in freefall, but they did have new owners. So it was one of them things that it was uncertain whereabouts they were actually going to finish when I was making these predictions. A lot of people were like, the new owner is going to getting together, and he did well with Ilkeston, so he's going to do well with Scunthorpe, and they're going to get back up the league. I was like, yeah, but I think there's something which you can't just immediately fix, something which has taken years to dismantle. I mean, we saw that with Derby, didn't we, when they finished 7th and bottled the playoffs, and now they've been promoted. I think Scunthorpe could do a similar thing. They just bottled the promotion against the rivals of Boston as well, which must really hurt the team from North Lincolnshire. But I do think that it's stick with Jimmy Smith, stick with the ideas, and they will eventually get promoted. Whether it's next season, it's going to be a competitive one. We'll have to see. But I think with Glanford Park and that huge following they get, I think there is definitely potential for them to reclimb up the leagues. Just need to do it right this time. First, I went with Chester. Chester actually finished 10th. Yeah, I mean, I thought Callum McIntyre was going to come in and revolutionise. He was the best manager in the National League North the season before the 2022-23 season. He was that manager of the season. And I saw plenty of signs, and I still do. I see signs that they can win this league. I think that not doing a radical overhaul is the thing which needs to stick at it with enough time, and they will probably reach the playoffs soon. But yeah, that team spirit is really going well in that club, and I can see the positive momentum, steps at a time. It's small little baby steps, but they will take it week by week, and they will get there. Right, moving on to the National League South. Sorry for dwelling on the National League North for so long. It's just a bit of my passion. It's one of my favourite leagues to look at right now is the National League North. You can probably tell. 24th, I went with Farnborough, and they actually finished 8th. So proves how much I know about the southern type of football. I had a similar reasoning based in Scarborough. I thought, Farnborough are one of them clubs which could either been at either end of the table, and it turns out they were on the opposite end as what I predicted. So that is, in terms of my predictions, bit skewy. I do think that with that sort of core sort of club ethos, as you might want to say, it seems to be going well, and they didn't really. I know they finished 1 point off the playoffs, but I don't think anybody really expected them to be 1 point off the playoffs at the end of the season. Hampton and Richmond looked like they were in the driving seat, and then they dropped out on the final day. And Farnborough sort of were in mid-table for a while, so I don't think anyone generally considered them to reach the playoffs for most of the season, despite finishing one place out of it. 23rd is even worse. I went with Aveley, who actually finished second. Not second, sorry, 7th. They finished as in the playoffs quite convincingly. In terms of come the end of the season, it looked like they were the ones going in with the momentum. They were the ones which I thought might have actually won the playoffs if you look at my playoff predictions. I thought that underdog mentality was really clear to me, that they, on their day, they can make any team stand up and take notice, and that they are not just a team in Essex that no one has ever heard of. They're at the highest level they've ever been. They're performing exceptionally well at it as well. They're a team which don't look like they're going to be the puppies that are inexperienced and going to be destroyed by the big dogs. And that squad has proven me wrong. So I will tip my hats and say sorry to you who are Aveley fans. 22nd, I did get right, though, was Taunton Town. Now, I did not expect Taunton Town to have most of their games having to play at a different venue because of the absolute horrendous weather, as we're even having right now across the north of England and in the Midlands as well. I've seen that Northwest is urging people not to travel even. But it's been a horrible season all the way throughout the UK for the weather-wise. And so I didn't encounter that, but I did think they were going to... it was, I think, with the bans of the players betting, it did create that distrust. I think some of the psychological concerns did arise. They went a bit awry towards the end of the season, and they were constantly almost looking over their shoulder instead of looking to try and get out. And that sort of meant they travelled backwards, and at the end of the day, they finished 4 points off safety. Now, I actually thought that for the longest time, thought that Taunton were going to turn it around, actually. I thought that at the end running, I thought they had the fixtures that they could have done it, and they could have, should have, would have. But, I mean, Hemel Hempstead were in the relegation zone for most of the season, and so were Eastbourne in that top 21st position. The fact that neither of them have been relegated at the end of the season is a damning indictment to both Taunton and Dartford. We'll come to Dartford later. But I think Taunton in the Southern League will be able to rebuild. They should clear out some of them people who were found to be guilty of betting to create new positivity. Probably spend a couple of seasons in the Southern League, get their act together. I don't expect them to see them immediately. We'll see them in a few seasons, I reckon. 21st, Hampton Waterlooville. Now, they're an interesting one. I don't know why they managed... Well, they finished 23rd. So I was right with them being relegated. I mean, Hampton Waterlooville, though, does have the infrastructure to be a big club. But I think appointing Jamie Collins wasn't a good manager to appoint. It was very much a wild card, which didn't pay off. And they didn't really improve their squad, so they did travel backwards, sort of meaning that they were always in a relegation battle. Ever since pretty much the first game of the season, they've been in a relegation battle and just struggled throughout. And the negativity that they gave up a playoff fight, they gave up a ghost, and decided, right, we're going to get rid of the manager, we're going to bring this inexperienced guy in, and it just went to pieces. And that's why they've been relegated. I mean, it proves mismanagement of a football club at best. Like, you can't, if you're on the verge of reaching the playoffs, and I know you bottled it, I know you missed out, and this is probably a warning to all clubs, not just Havant. Don't get rid of that manager just because you bottled the playoffs. Wagner, I think it is, or Wagner, the Norwich manager, who just missed out the playoff final against a very good Leeds team as well. That, for me, like, I know they lost 4-0 in the semis, but it's like just constantly going around the gravy train of different managers or trying to take a gamble. You've got to stick with the stability. And if you stick with the stability, it will pay off. 20th, I went with Maidstone, which I think Maidstone were the surprise package in all sense of this league. I think them and Worthing and Aveley were sort of a three, which I wasn't expecting to be at that end. Maidstone, though, are a club who have had history. But I looked at them last season, and they were awful. They were truly diabolical. And I think I have seen a comment, by the way. I will comment it about at the end of the when we get towards the Premier League ones. But yeah, I kept that comment in mind. But they have been pretty woeful in that season prior, and I thought, you know what, they'd struggle to adapt, but they didn't. They hit the ground running. They did pretty well. Went on that really good FA Cup run where they even beat Ipswich, who have just been promoted for flipping Premier League. So, and I think it wasn't until the 77-78 when Blythe reached the fifth round and went to play against Newcastle, didn't they, in that famous FA Cup run. So Maidstone, you've really surprised me this season and really, really done well with working at that defence. Only conceding 52 is an incredible job. So yeah, I think I might need to reevaluate in terms of my idea of the gulf of class. I think that's proven by both teams going up into the National League have all pretty much come straight back down, apart from one, I believe. And the teams who do come down tend to immediately be at the top end of the table as well. So there is a big gulf between the regionalised football and the national one. 19th, Yeovil Town, but the same logic applies almost to a T with this team. I actually also thought there was a lot of instability coming into the start of the season. I thought they just needed to stabilise, but they've gone straight back up. I must commend Yeovil that they've done well. They've been excellent. Well done with your champions. And do I think you'll be able to stay in the National League? Well, that depends. It's a hard league. It always is. It's always a grind. But maybe this time you'll be able to find your feet a bit more quicker. And if you stick with that winning mentality, then you should be able to get through. 18th, I went with Chippenham Town, and they finished in 12th. Now, Chippenham are normally a team which does finish in the lower mid-table. But I do think that academy football mentality, it did actually work. They did sort of bring in a few youngsters. They did do a bit here, a bit there. I think that transfer strategy in non-league may actually work better than I thought. I think gambling on youngsters does sometimes work. I mean, they've not been great this season. They've not really been in either end of the table's picture. They've just sort of been floating mid-table, which is roughly where I think most people would expect the Wiltshire outfit to be. So yeah, well, I think surpassed my expectations. 17th one with Bath City, they finished 6th. So as you can already tell, my playoff predictions are completely skewed off. But you got to bear in mind, in 2021-22, they finished 18th. And last season, they finished 11th. So did they make an improvement? Yes, they did. They're continuing to do that improvement. I think that budget really pays off, though. They have a good budget, a good, strong stadium with Twerton Park. It's very good. Everything in that club is run quite soundly, and is a club which is looking more and more on the up the more I look at them. And the ambition now is clearly there. I didn't see the ambition at the start of the season. I see the ambition now, and that is what drives clubs forward. 16th from Dover, and they actually finished bottom of the league, 24th. Yeah, everything I mentioned still applies. The poor ownership, the too young the manager. I don't know if they still have that manager. I've not checked. That 3 players leaving to only sign again. That feels like an age ago now, but that was an absolute farce. The assistant manager walking out with an absolute huff. That was an absolute carnage in the team from the Kent coast. And you know what? I should have put them straight down for relegation. Any form of galvanisation with adversity has just been proven wrong for me this season. Although has it? Because I think Torquay, which we'll come to later, have proven me right on that regard. I thought they were going to overcome the issues, but no. I think Dover in the Isthmian League will be an outfit which will probably be no higher than mid-table if they're not struggling at the other end, and they need to stop that free fall, get everything sorted, get Crabble Road sorted, get everything that they can to get back up them leagues, because at the moment they are in free fall, and who knows where their floor is truly. 15th, I went with Hemel Hempstead Town. They finished in 20th, just for relegation. I did mention earlier how they plotted that great escape, if you will. They are normally mid-table. They are normally much better. But yeah, I think that potential is always what it is. It's potential, and if they're not going to show it, that's what's going to happen. They're going to carry on going backwards and backwards. The too few and too far chances have been. The luck is running out. Do Hemel Hempstead get relegated next season? I have no idea, but I could feasibly see them being one of the teams in and around that picture. They've got to have a big window. They've got to shake everything up. They've got to realise that they're in a position which, if they're going to want to stay in this league, then they're going to need to be a heck of a lot better than they were this season. I can tell you that. 14th, Weston-super-Mare. They finished 13th. Pretty much what I predicted. 1 point in it. That's it. I mean, yeah, they came in with good state of and pedigree. I mean, the fans do keep on coming, and I think Western are a team here to stay in the National League South for a bit. Not sure how long, but for a few seasons at least. That positive brand of football has been really, really exciting to watch. 13th, Braintree. Congratulations on the playoff win, Braintree. You've done yourself proud, and you've proven me wrong. I thought last season their sort of playoff sort of views were they were so defeatist and so negative going into it, and that's so changed this season. That's so changed, and to actually see them get promoted, I mean, will they be good money for the National League? I'm not sure. Are they good money for the National League South? 110%. They have been good. They've been in that playoff hunt, never quite looking like they're going to end up in the top 3 positions. But have they been in and around it? They've been stuck in. They've known highs, positions, and they've really gathered together a team which knows how to win. and they have not replicated that performance. So I'm happy for them. 12th, Truro City. They finished 16th. Not much. Mid-table, sort of where I predicted them to be. I do think that the building of this new stadium is just going from one fast to another. When they actually move into that new stadium, they're probably not going to fill it. Absolutely insane. But no, I think Truro, they are a club which probably going to be here for a long, long time, and that if the positive steps are put in place around the playing squad, results will come in off the pitch. Going and building new stadiums with when they didn't even fill their old one, I don't think, was a bit like Cornwall as well. It's not the biggest footballing place. Former town accepted. They've been great this season, Falmouth, and have had some good fans. But overall, Cornwall don't tend to gather the thousands to go and see the football teams. But especially if they're playing at Plymouth, they're not going to trek all the way from Truro to Plymouth, are they? But it'll be interesting to see once their new stadium has been built. 11th, Slough. They finished 10th, 2 goals in it. You know what? Everything I said in that video, completely correct. They are more of a mid-table challenger, and you know what? They have been on the edge of playoff push, but I never really quite saw them as being able to be on that position to be in the playoffs at the end of the season. And you know what? I do think that with the right infrastructure, with the right planning, with the right squad, we could see something different, but I don't see them at the moment being a team that fires me up. But I want to see a team that fires me up, if you get what I mean. 9th, Welling. Well, Welling finished 17th. And you know what? They were in that relegation picture as well, weren't they? I thought Danny Blore was slightly better. I mean, have they done better than last season? Not really. But no, I do think they will eventually turn it around if they stick with his project. He will eventually get the results that are needed. 8th, St Albans City. 11th, okay, not too bad. They were within quite a bit of a fighting chance in finishing the playoffs. They did bottle it a bit at the end of the season. I think we can all accept that. I think in terms of that bottle, I think that's a learning curve. It's cool for more experience and more calm heads. But yeah, I think David Noble has learned about this league now, and so he knows where he needs to improve. He's learnt how to get a shift out of this squad, and if he continues to sort of work, if he gets a bit more bottle, you never know. 7th, Hampton and Richmond Borough. Well, as I briefly mentioned earlier in the Aveley part, Hampton and Richmond Borough finished 9th. Do I think that they should have been 7th? Yes, I do. Not to the discredit of Aveley. I think you can see the progression at this club. It's not revolutionary or anything like that, but it's something that sometime soon they're going to end up in the playoffs and get promoted via it. Whether that happens anytime soon, I don't know, but progression is progression. Yeah. And I actually thought that was a quite wacky prediction. It turned out not to be. Good job that 115 brain works as that ball knowledge, eh? 14th, Tonbridge Angels. Yeah, I made a lot of jokes. Apologies about that again. But no, I think you look at Tonbridge Angels and you think they should be a bit higher than their position of 14th. Not much, maybe 12th, something like that. But I don't know what I said. Why did I say that it was a playoff push? But they did have some good signings and a serial promotion winner with Jay Saunders. So has he reached his level with Tunbridge, or is he just going to need a bit more time to tinker around and change? Tunbridge fans, let me know where you see your club in the future. Do you see staying in the National League South for a bit, or do you think you're going to be slightly better? Fifth, Weymouth. Yeah, that's an interesting shout. They finished 15th. They did have that plunge to rock bottom, didn't they, in the season before? And I think that did give them a bit of a kick up the rear end, if you excuse the crudeness of the nature of that. But I do think you look at it, and they are a team that is. They probably aren't playoff quality. I think I was a bit delusional with that, but I do think that they had some good signings. They've done things by the book. They've done things right, and now I can see them sort of staying in this league, not really looking as much over their shoulders as they maybe should be. Baby steps, but I do think that Firework did its desired job. Fourth, Torquay. Okay, I had no idea that Torquay were going to enter administration at the beginning of the season. Okay, they finished in 18th, but if you add back their points that they got deducted, they would have finished 12th. Now, I mean, I think behind the scenes, disorganised and chaotic, and I hope for the best of all my wills of the team in the Torbay region would just get a new owner. I know there's some people looking around. There's quite a few well-off people within that regional world as well. I know there's several groups which have been touted, including a fan-owned one to try and take the club out of administration. Doesn't seem to be as bad as the Southend picture. Neil Warnock, for goodness sake, has come and decided to get involved with the club back again. But I mean, that guy gets everywhere, doesn't he? But no, will we see Torquay going back up the leagues anytime soon? I honestly don't know. Admin does weird things, and it's going to be probably another couple of seasons until we see them getting up the league. But I do wish the best for the team in the Southwest, and I do think that you will be fighting for that playoff position I predicted you for in the not too distant future. Third, Chelmsford City. I'll take that. They finished second by 1 goal. That's it. A singular goal. On the final day of the season or something like that, it happened like that. So, no, I think Chelmsford absolutely... should they have done better in the playoffs? Probably. Are we realistically going to see them challenging next season? Almost certainly. I think, yeah. I think in terms of Chelmsford, they are good for their money at the moment. They are really positive. They've had a really good season, and I can really see them getting a good momentum going forward. Do they win the league next season? I don't know. We'll see. But I think we gotta give them a chance to be up and around there again. And they are a team that I don't know where their ceiling is, but obviously not getting promoted would probably actually be the best for the club, because I don't think they're quite ready for that jump to the National League yet. But I do think they're playoff guarantees almost every season now. It's like Boston in the National League North for years. They were always in the playoffs and never quite got promoted from them. And it's one of them things that they just needed to get the combination. They just need to get the dice roll right. And every single time you roll the dice, the more and more likely you are to land on that 6 and get that absolute bonus that you want when rolling that dice. I don't know what game I'm referring to that you need to roll a 6. But anyhow, you get on the money. And the Chelmsford just need to keep on doing that. They're doing what's right, and everything's going and looking up with that club. Second, Worthing. There you go. They finished third. If there was 1 goal in it, both of them predictions would have been dead on. Yeah, I mean, they're on an upwards trajectory, aren't they? I do think there is going to be some absolute... I mean, Adam Hinshelwood, can we just put some respect on this man's name? He is a born winner, as I said. He is a great great coach, and I do think, is he a coach? Sorry, no. I mean, yes. Okay, I'm not sure. But Adam Hinshelwood is someone I mentioned, and he's somewhere in that club. But yeah, and Gary Elphick as well also has that. Oh no, I think Adam Hinshelwood was managing. Gary Elphick was the assistant. Um, if I was incorrect, please correct me. But that is some absolute mentality that we do want to see in this level of football. I mean, first I predicted Dartford, that it was a horrible, horrible prediction when they finished 21st. I mean, they did so well last season. Like, you can't blame me. Look at last season, and if you don't really follow the National League South, I urge you to look at last season and then look at this season, and you'll see how utterly chaotic this level of football is, and why getting a prediction right is absolutely huge. Because if you can go from being in the playoff finals to being relegated within one season, it's an absolute mess of a league. So, I did actually think the Dartford would be able to get that next step. Well, sorry, but I don't know. I'm speechless. Dartford. Somebody from Dartford needs to explain how they went from being in the playoffs to being relegated, because that is a story which needs far more research, and something that I, at a cursory person just looking at the club, have no idea why, because there doesn't seem to be any behind the scenes issues or anything like that. Someone needs to explain what the issue is there. On to step one, or tier 5, or the National League, obviously formerly known as the Conference, top tier and non-league and all that, whatever you want to call them. Been a very good league, very, very good league this season, and I went 24th with Ebbsfleet United. They finished 19th, so they did slightly better than I expected, actually. I did think that in terms of their domination in National League South, I didn't really think it would translate into the National League. I still don't think it did overly. They managed to grind a few results here and there, but ultimately they were sort of a team that were in that lower mid-half position. You sort of look at them teams for Wokings, for Wealdstones, the Dagenhams. They're all sort of within that sort of picture, the Yorks. I just think they were throughout sort of one of them teams that didn't quite feel. I know that they were close. They were close to being relegated. They were, after all, only 2 points off, and I believe it was the last game of the season that they stayed up. But I mean, it's been a roller coaster of a season, and that defence, I was right to query it. 74 goals conceded, not the worst by any extent. I mean, even Aldershot conceded 83 and they finished 8th. So there've been a lot of goals in the National League this season. So to have a good defence probably is not the most surprising. But both Kidderminster and York and Boreham Wood all conceded less goals than them. So based on the defence, probably not good enough. I mean, it's even based on attack, to be honest. They just know how to occasionally get a win, which is what they needed. 23rd Rochdale, and they actually finished 11th. I do apologise to all Dale fans. Yeah, I didn't quite know what to expect. Rochdale was a club which was a bit in free fall at the start of the season. They had a real hodgepodge of players. And I didn't really know what to expect from Jimmy McNulty. I really didn't. I thought it would be back-to-back relegations. Did they actually get them 6 points deducted? I don't think they did. Because I think it's because they're not in the EFL anymore. It didn't apply. But if it did, I think you're looking there, 62 minus 6, you got 56. So they would have been plunged into, on goal difference, into 16th. So 15th, 16th, I'm not entirely sure what the precise thing is, because Dagenham has the same goal difference. But much it's not been a great season. Let's be honest. They did occasionally look like they would burst into the playoffs, but they couldn't sustain that over the period of the season. And Jimmy McNulty, hats off to you. You did do a better job than I expected. 22nd was the other Greater Manchester outfit of Oldham Athletic, also a club who have just come out of adversity. I didn't really know what to expect of the new owners, whether they were going to be ones which were sort of trying to conserve the cash, prevent administration, just manage it well, and then manage decline. And also appointing a quite inexperienced manager, David Unsworth. But no, they actually did much better. I mean, they weren't going to get playoffs, let's be honest, at the end of the day, finishing 10th, but it was still a solid 8 points off the playoff. They didn't look like they were going to be that playoff team, which they could have been. I mean, it's a story this season of what could have been, not what was. And Oldham, I apologise for putting you in the relegation picture. Didn't know what to expect though. 21st SC Halifax Town. Okay, they finished 7th. My predictions are going from worst to obscene. I mean, I thought, oh, really unexpected bad season, you occasionally get them. I mean, what if you are appointing manager based on the game Football Manager? What am I meant to predict you? Is he going to be an absolute baller, or is he going to be a guy who's just sat in his room, almost as good as me, just ranting and playing a game, selecting players? I mean, I don't know. SC Halifax they've done well this season. They didn't do well in the playoffs, but they're a team that the Shea really has some good fans, and I do think I should probably stop doubting them now. I mean, they are a team which are on the up. I don't know if they'll get promoted next season. We'll see, but they'll be in that picture probably. 20th Altrincham. Yeah, they're a team which really surprised me this season. 4th, really surprised me. Put your hands up if any of you actually expected Altrincham to finish in the playoffs. Waiting? I'm guessing not. Unless you're some deluded Altrincham fan, and I don't even think Altrincham could do it. I mean, now you could point out star players. You definitely could now. I mean, there's some which have already been rumoured to moving away from the club. I know they got seeded into the semi-finals because the farcical situation at Gateshead, which we will be talking about. But I really was surprised. They were a team which was lower mid-table. Let's not forget they were challenging relegation last season. Phil Parkinson, manager, I think has got to be. I mean, I'm not going to disservice Paul Cook, but I think he's in the running for the manager of the season. Maybe the second. But he certainly did much, much better. Like Chesterfield, everyone expected to get promoted. Phil Parkinson, no one expected him to be in that position. So, yeah, well done. 19th, Kidderminster Harriers. Yeah, so the team from Agborough Stadium. They finished 22nd, so I'm not actually mad at this one. That appointment of Brown as well was an absolute great decision for the long-term investment for the club. I think in the future that will reap benefits. You just got to spend some time with him and he'll do wonders at that club. It was a bit of a lack of goals, let's be honest. They had a bit of a goal drought. Scoring 40 goals is the lowest in the division. That's not good enough to stay up. It really isn't. And I addressed that issue at the beginning of the season, and I do think I think that's where they need to target. Find a good target man, a good poacher, somebody who can just score you 20 goals a season, and you'll be flying back up and actually much more ready. Somebody who's got experience at both leagues, that'd be great. Somebody who doesn't have an attitude problem. I mean, Kieran Phillips was not the answer, was he? But no, I think bad adjustment. They needed a bit of time, and they didn't get that time. Yeah. 18th, Maidenhead United, and they finished 14th. Good season, all things considering, for Maidenhead. I just don't quite know how to place how they did that this season. I think that they were this season one of them teams that were they going to plunge into a relegation battle or kick themselves away from the rest of the group. And they managed to kick themselves a bit away from the rest of that group, which I'm impressed that they did, because they could have been well easy to draw themselves into that 18th position and into that battle. They only finished 3 points above it in the end, and 1 goal by goal difference as well. So that sort of anywhere between 13th and 21st, realistically, has been an absolute carnage of quite uncertain about sort of who was going to vacate that 21st position. And it's been a mess all season, whoever's been in that pack. So the fact that they managed to finish 18th managed to finish 14th instead of 18th, as I predicted, isn't a damning indictment. It's 3 points. Like, I'm not that far off. I do think the defence has worsened this season. Not massively. They're not the worst defence by any means. It's sort of a mid-table defence. Hence why they're in mid-table. They're probably mid-table in scoring as well. But no, overall, bang average season. 17th, Gateshead. Right. Yeah. I do believe they overachieved last season is an overstatement of lies. They did not overachieve. They're consistently good. Yeah. I do think that this season was even better. Now, I know they lost Williamson, or Williams, or whatever it is, to MK Dons, and has brought in this new lad, who is also happens to be a Newcastle legend. Of course he does, because it's Gateshead. Who else would it be? But I do think their fans are so passionate. I mean, the stadium's awful. let's clear that out. Gateshead International Stadium is not the desirable stadium. Not that that should have been the reason which prohibited them getting promoted. It was the stupid council, and I could talk about the council's decision to not give that lease till the fat lady sings. There was so many things that were wrong with it. There's probably some dodgy corruption involved with it, but I mean, Mike Williamson did a great job, and his successor did a great job as well. Congratulations, Gateshead. Also, congratulations on winning the actual cup, the FA Trophy. That was at least a consolation prize for being cruelly denied the playoffs. I think I'm looking forward to seeing you again next season. That should be an absolutely amazing game, whichever one I decide to go and see. Maybe when Boston come up, or because they've got good fans, or I mean, there's several fan bases in the National League which bring a very good crowd. So I'll need to check. But or maybe the North East Derby against Hartlepool. That will be an interesting one. But no, that's me waffling. I think I doubted you, and that is something that I have to apologise for. The Heed are going to be massive once again. 16th, Oxford City. Yeah, it was the first time at this level and finished 24th. They did look a lot out of depth. Let's not lie. They did dominate the National League South, were they in? I think so. Yeah, I think the golfing quality was just way too obvious, and I think even the owners and the manager, I think everybody just realised almost immediately that it was going to be a long, long season. 33 points, no discredit whatsoever. It's not a bad total for a team that hasn't ever been at this level of football. Second club as well, and Oxford United have had a banging season as well. So it's not like they have a reason to come and flock to, is it Marston Road or something like that? It's over in that Marston area of Oxford, isn't it? So there's not really much reason to be able to go over there. So probably a dip in support as well. But you know what? The National East South, was it? Have you put them in National East South or National East North? I'm never quite sure. Oxford's one of them weird ones. I think it might be the National East North. Oxford in the North, flipping it. But yeah, I think too soon is probably the answer. And if you do come up again, I think people will want to see an improved squad, I think. And I think even the fans would accept that. 15th went for Aldershot. Crikey. They actually finished in 8th. A lot of talks about Aldershot. They were actually, I don't think they were actually that good this season. I know they finished 8th, but call me crazy. When I saw them in person at Gateshead in that 1-0 win, they weren't that good. They could hardly get past a goalkeeper who was replacement goalkeeper because the main goalkeeper got sent off. And yeah, they did a bit of tiki-taka football, and it felt like a proper football game. But there's just something about Aldershot which never quite clicked when the big moments came along, and that's why they bottled the playoffs. I mean, it's better than looking over your shoulders at relegation. I mean, that's certainly a thing that I think any Aldershot fan will be grateful for this season, and hence we've probably seen a rise in attendances. But they are they did even better than the mid-table finish I predicted them. I mean, they weren't. When I predicted them to finish first in the league, I still remember that horror flashback. They finished like 19th that season or something like that. Yeah, that's when I didn't watch non-league, by the way, so I didn't know what I was talking about. I do now. Well, that's up to you to judge, but I think I know a bit more now. 14th, I went with ASC Fylde, and they finished 18th. Again, only 3 points between the two. If I just swapped Maidenhead and Fylde around, I would have got them dead right, wouldn't I? So it was one of them clubs that have actually, they look like they could be at home in the National League now. They've sort of gotten into their skin. They're looking a bit like the sort of clubs like someone like a Dagenham and Redbridge, although Dagenham and Redbridge was obviously a club in the EFL for a while. Both sort of have now sort of moved to that position where they are happy to be mid-table and they're satisfied with that. I think every team would want to be a bit higher, but that realistically ain't going to happen because there's 24 teams in the league and they can't all finish in the playoffs. But no, I think Fylde should be happy with the 18th. They've not gone straight back down and embarrassed themselves like last time. And it's to see where they move from now is what I'm interested in. 13th, Dorking Wanderers. Yeah, the team which is owned and managed by the same person. Was never going to work, was it? Finishing 13th was such a deluded thing for me to say when they finished 23rd. Yeah. I think they've probably found their level as a bit of a yo-yo club, you know. I think Dorking could be a yo-yo club. They could be like the Rotherham United of the National East South, because I can't see them not doing well in the National East South next season. I really can't, which is a bit mental. But they are a club that is certainly where I sort of expected a bit better of them, to be honest. But maybe that was slightly deluded of me to say. But 12th, I got dead right, which I'm always happy to get a prediction dead right, of Hartlepool United. Yeah, the Monkey Angers. Yeah. Well, I thought it was a double-edged sword. I thought, you know what, getting relegated, Not entirely sure what to expect with. Is it Kevin Paul? Is he still Kevin somebody? Is he still the manager? I'm not sure. But yeah, they've it did look for a little bit in the first half of the season, like very early doors, around about November, October time, that they could have been plunged into a relegation battle, and I think they did sack the manager actually. But they turned it around. They weren't ever going to get the playoffs. I think, considering that start of the season, I think it wasn't ever going to happen. But no, I smacked them in mid-table, and I think it is a gradual building job with the Pools, and I think eventually we may be able to see them once again in that sort of position where they may get back to the EFL. I'm not going to kid though, it's a hard league to get out of. You can see the likes of Southend, Oldham, Rochdale, Dagenham. They're all former EFL clubs, which all missed out on the playoffs this season, and by quite a margin as well, by some. So it's a slog. It's a difficult league to get out of. Hartlepool have done it before. They'll be like Grimsby. They'll come again. They'll probably get promoted again at some point. But you've got to realistically manage expectations. 11th, I went with Woking. Now, they actually finished 17th. Again, it's one of them questions of where Woking see their future. I think just a mid-table team. They're quite happy with at the moment. I think they don't normally finish mid-table historically. They normally were within a relegation battle. And could you count 17th as a relegation battle? It was 3 points off relegation, maybe. But I don't think there was only 1 point, a flash in the pan point coming to the end of the season when everyone was all trying to vie for a win, and some teams were playing others, and everyone was looking at the other fixtures and all looking at each other and like, oh, is this going to be the season? It was fine. Let's be honest. Woking weren't the worst of that bunch by any stretch of the imagination. The ability to be able to overcome that, they have cut some of the deadwood, which I thought was just recklessly getting rid of experienced players. But actually, the cutting of the deadwood worked. Not to the extent that they managed to get to the mid-table positions that I expected them to get to. But I think that intensity that levels, there's something great about that, isn't it? 10th, Southend United. Well, they finished 9th. I'm not going to moan about that. Positive goal difference of 25. And okay, they did get a points deduction. Okay, they should have probably been in the playoffs. I'm not sure. Was it 10 or 12? Either way, should have been around about 5th, 6th position. So, yeah, I do think that's going to be an issue for some. I'm just desperately hoping against hope that Roots Hall and the club and everything is all just sorted. Some new owners come in. This dodgy owner who wants to knock down the stadium and build a housing estate, but not building a new stadium. We've heard it all before. Get out the club. You just ruin these people's lives and their cultures and everything. And to finish 10th after all of that, well, 9th, sorry, after all of that, is an absolute credit to the fan base, to the players, to the management team. They've ignored what's gone on behind the scenes, and they've done a phenomenal job. Hats off, amazing. I think Southend has got to be one of the best teams this season, in my honest opinion. I think Chesterfield were inevitably going to get promoted. They had the budget, they had everything. And, I mean, I say it a lot about, I've said it all about Altrincham as well, but I'll say it about Southend as well, that they definitely have some incredible management and managed expectations as well. I think it's when people saw that they were going to, were they, weren't they, into the playoffs, I think the managed expectations are sort of saying, unfortunately, because of things beyond our control, we're not going to be able to make playoffs, but we've been a credit to the National League this season. and they'll continue to be. They are a team that have got a loyal fan base, and that fan base will get them through the tough times. And you know what? I wouldn't be upset to see a trust of fan supporters running that club. Ninth, York City, little bit delusional. They finished 20th. Yeah, I thought that, you know what, they've been in the EFL before, so they're going to gradually resurge. They just missed out on relegation, and realistically, they look like, till the last game of the season, and Boreham Wood took their spot, that they were going to be the team which was going to finish in about 21st position. And I was like, oh, pretty much guarantee it's going to be either York or Dorking, isn't it? Well, sorry, not York or Dorking, York. I think it was pretty much York. I think I'd figured it was going to be. And so they've done worse than I originally expected in the first of the season. Yeah, I do think some of them players reading them now, not the greatest acquisitions, actually. I still think ninth would probably be a bit delusional for me. 8th, Wealdstone. They finished 16th. Not a bad season for Wealdstone altogether. Nothing like the 8th. I always overpredict Wealdstone, though, if you've watched my predictions before. They're a team that, for some reason, I just think are going to do better than they do. They just go from strength to strength, from season to season, but can never quite bridge that gap. But no, Stuart Maynard, I don't know if he's still at the club, but if he is, he's doing a great job. I've not checked that recently. I do think that relationship that they have with some of them clubs. I mean, we will still be seeing the Barnet, the Wealdstone derby, which is always an interesting one next season. And I think being able to retain their players they did, it should be good for the future. Do I see Wealdstone going higher than 16th next season? Probably not much. Not only a few positions, if that. I don't think I'm necessarily going to go in a delusional win this time, but we'll see. 7th, Dagenham and Redbridge. They finished 15th. Okay, Dagenham. Any Dagenham and Redbridge fans need to explain to me how this club, year after year after year, end up in mid-table. How? I mean, you used to combat towards the playoffs. You used to be in the EFL, and you just gradually slipped. Now, I mean, I thought that they were going to get like that new bounce with Ben Stevens. He did a good job with Eastleigh. He's got them into the playoff in his first season, and he was going to come in and do the same with Dagenham. Nope, because Dagenham is a club which stagnated, I think is the word which I'm going to use to describe them. They've stagnated in the National League. They've accepted that they're just going to be a National League club who's going to float around that mid-table. And it's up to the club to prove me wrong. So don't come out here saying, oh, we've not stagnated at all, we're going to make improvements and stuff. Prove me wrong. 6th, I went with Eastleigh. Okay, they finished 13th. A club which is beginning to turn to mid-table mediocrity, I must say. I think Scott Quigley was going to be an absolute great signing. He came from Stockport. Stockport had just gone and got promoted again. He left Stockport, where he could have got a promotion on his CV to League One. But no, he decided to join this Hampshire outfit, which don't look like they know what they're doing for the long term. Like, do they want to get promoted? I don't know. Because it didn't look like it this season. It looked like this season that they were unsure whether they wanted to stay in the playoff position, stay in the mid-table, or whether to go on a bit of a run and challenge. They had patches of really good form and then patches where they were just a bit meh. But no, I think some of them signings that they made should have done much better for them. And that's what I'm going to say. 5th, I actually went with Chesterfield. I didn't actually go that they were going to win the league. I think part of me was a bit sort of thinking the league's a bit weaker this season and Chesterfield are going to do well, but they're going to be a bit sort of in their heads, a bit cocky, a bit arrogant. We're going to walk this league. And I thought that was a dangerous feeling at the beginning of the season. I'm always of the viewpoint, but you got to get the job done before you can take the eyes off the ball. And they've taken the eyes off the ball recently. Let's not kid ourselves. They could have reached that 100 points mark, and they only finished on 98 because of them horrible 4 losses in a row that they had towards the end of the season against some bang average teams as well. So I wish the Spy to be absolute best. I really do. In League Two, I think you're going to do absolute great job. I actually do. I think you might even get back-to-back promotions. I'm going to say it now. I think you can get back-to-back promotions because I look at the squad at Chesterfield and I see them names like Will Grigg. I see the Tom Nailers. I see all sorts of different players and the pedigree of the players they bring in. They, for me, can be whatever they want to be. If they want to be the best team in the league on their day, they can be the best team in the league. They absolutely were starlets throughout. And Paul Cook has done... Is it Paul Cook still there, the job? I actually might have messed that up, but I'm pretty certain it was Paul Cook last season, and pretty certain he's still there. So he's done a great job. And I think it will be a season next season to maybe celebrate again. But well done, Spy Rights. You've done well. Take your champagne, and I will swallow my humble apple pie. 4th, Solihull Moors. Not too bad off. 1 point. They were actually finished in 5th position. I actually feel quite bad for Solihull. How do you go to Wembley twice and lose both of the finals that you were in on a penalty shootout? I think the nerves got to them a bit. I think, and Andy Wing is a good manager. I'm not going to deny that. He certainly knows how to get a click out of his squad. But no, I think if they've been, I think last season, like the season before, was a blip, and I think we can see that now. And will Solihull ever get to the EFL? Let me know, because Solihull are one of them clubs which they look like they're going to get promoted via the playoffs, but they don't quite have the bottle. There's other teams which seem to have that bottle, and I don't know what bottle is. Where do you get a bottle? Like, I don't know, Sainsbury's. But it's something they need to learn, and I hope this season provides a learning curve, because then they can go from strength to strength as a result. I got 3rd place dead on right, Bromley. I wasn't going to say that they're going to win the playoffs. I never say that at the beginning of the season because I don't know who is going to be in it. But Andy Woodman is a great, fantastic manager. And you look, just look at what he's done with this club. Bromley were a mid-table team in the National League. They were your Eastleys, your sort of clubs which you've occasionally reached the playoffs, occasionally had a mid-season flop. So to be able to actually get through the playoffs and being in the EFL next season, unfortunately we're not going to have a South London derby because Sutton got relegated, but you know what? He's done a really, really good job. And I think in terms of positioning, there's going to be some interesting movers and shakers. But I do think that some of them players may leave, some may come, and it'll be a whole different squad by the end of the season. Promotion always does that. But I wish them the best. Well done. You've done well. Thanks for sticking around in the National League, and hopefully you're not back soon, because I like to see clubs from non-league staying around for at least a couple of seasons, 2nd is Barnet. Got that one dead right again. Yes. That stadium, the Hive, let's be honest, great, fantastic stadium. But when it came to it, they couldn't get promoted. again, another team which didn't quite have that bottle to manage to make the finals. Now, I don't know whether it was a slight bit of arrogance. I look at Barnet, they're on 86 points this season, which is a decent points total. That is a very decent points total. And Dean Brennan should have known better. He shouldn't have. I don't know what he said during the playoff push. And you know what? Whatever he did, it didn't work. And I think they went into the playoffs looking like the team that they thought when they crossed that pitch. They already thought that they'd won it, and that's always dangerous. But no, Harry Pritchard was a great signing, and second place, very good in the National League. Do I think they're going to go and win it next season? I don't actually know, you know. It could be a interesting one. I think they might. Because the teams that's coming down haven't impressed me much. I don't think they're going to make an instant return or an instant impact. There are some other teams which have impressed me in the National League who could challenge for the title. But I think Barnet is one of them which maybe have their names on it. We'll see. And I actually predicted Borough would to win the league. Well, what a stupid prediction. They finished 21st. Well, all right. Bear this in mind, how good that FA Cup run was. Let's not forget, they got past Millwall, I think it was, last season. They were a fantastic club. They were fantastic unity. And they always seem to reach the playoffs anyway. Like, it wasn't like an outlandish prediction to say that they were going to finish first or anything like that. I mean, they made what seemed to be positive moves. But no, it was something in the air of that club which just didn't want to play in a way. They sort of slowly, as the season went on, they went from being mid-table with dull, drab results to being dragged into a relegation battle and shown no appetite really to win it, apart from on the final day, by which point it was a little too late. And it was a spirited performance on that final day of the season. I must give them that. But it was an all or nothing. And at the end of the day, it was nothing, wasn't it? Right, on to the EFL League 2. This video's going on quite a while as it is. Yeah, fascinating season, League 2. Last place I had Doncaster Rovers. Okay, they finished 5th. Yeah, they looking on the form of last season, right? They won 2 games in 16 in the tail end of last season. Maybe I was buying in too much to that, but that for me was negative form. And what a pre-season to change it around then. Whatever they were doing during that pre-season, whatever tablets or whatever they were, or drinks or whatever they were having, I'm not accusing them of drinking, doing doping, by the way, but whatever they were doing to change the mentality, something was right in the air in South Yorkshire, and they surpassed my expectations by a country mile. I mean, they did get some good signings. Let's not mix that up. But 24 to 5th, that is a heck of a turnaround from like what I thought was going to happen. I don't know how. I mean, I didn't really see them going to be in the playoffs till the final day. Really, they were sort of on the cusp, but never quite looked like they were going to reach it. There was a whole pack between there, like Barrow, Bradford, Wimbledon, Walsall, Gillingham, Crawley, Crewe, and Doncaster, all within. Well, Doncaster got 71 and Gillingham got 64. Like, I know Gillingham fell off a bit, but like, that isn't huge. 5 points. That was something to be able to get over. Talking about Gillingham, I put them in 23rd and they finished in 12th. So also a team I got a bit wrong this season. I mean, a lot of people said they were going to reach the playoffs this season, and you know what? They didn't. And I'm not going to be smug and say I told you so or stuff like that because I predicted them to be relegated. So I'm as much of a mug as they are. But I don't think Neil Harris was the right person for the job. Like, he didn't have that bite. They could have got that playoffs. They could have really fought for it. But I did think I probably over egged my sort of feelings that it wasn't gonna be a promotion season, and it went the other way. Probably a bit of a wrong feeling, that one. 22nd Tranmere Rovers. They finished 16th. Yeah, Tranmere are an interesting club. I mean, they do have the firepower. Let's not. They did. They only scored 67 this season, which is not fantastic. Not the worst, but sort of roughly where they are now. But I think I wasn't quite sure what Ian Dawes was going to bring to the club. I don't know if he's still around, but I assume he is. And mid-table is what he's ended up with. I, for one, was not entirely sure. I mean, he was at caretaker spells, and I thought, yeah, he did good at caretaker spells. I had no idea, because when a manager like that comes in, you just gotta, it's a bit of a poke in the dark. But no, yeah. 21st, Accrington Stanley, they finished 17th. Yeah, I'm not too disappointed with this one. Accrington has been mid-table most of this season. Lots of people did expect them to do well, and I probably underpredicted again, like Gillingham. But I did think it was one of them things that it was when you get relegated, it's one of them feelings you get that you're just not entirely sure where someone's headspace is at. And I think that's the case with Accrington. When you see them in 17th, that implies to me a club which doesn't really know what it's doing. Not that it's like a club in a relegation battle, but it's a club which is just sort of like, we need to get some headspace, so we're gonna take things slowly. And they did. They did. They got rid of 17 players and brought in a whole new squad. Well, that's not going to get you automatically back into the promotion picture, is it? 20th, I went with Newport County. They finished 18th. I'll take that one. Not too bad. Yeah, a lot of people said they were going to be definitely relegated, but Newport are a League Two club. It's just in their DNA. And I think you look at Newport, and it's one of them clubs which I don't expect them to be firing on all cylinders or being able to climb down leagues like absolutely nothing, but they did the job they needed to do. They finished in lower mid-table. They move on to next season, hoping more than probably reasonable that they may be able to turn a leaf. But I think fans, will broadly be all right with the season they've had. 19th with Harrogate, and they actually finished 13th. They're a hard club to predict, Harrogate, because they are established at this level. I'm just not entirely sure whereabouts. Like, are they a club which should be challenging for the promotion, or are they a club which should be, I don't know, looking over their shoulder relegation? And this season they were looking up. Next season they could be looking down. But no, I think, yeah, decent season overall. Apologies to the Amber the Amber Club, but no, I think that's something which you can be proud of this season, and I would like to see where they go next. 18th, when Morecambe, they finished 15th. There was only 3 points in that, not too bad. Yeah, I think if we're looking at Morecambe, a club which do sort of smack League Two at the moment. I mean, they were in League One the season before, but it wasn't one which was outstandingly good. They didn't have that many great keeper. They didn't really have anything that much to write home about, really. And so Morecambe this season, and by the way, defence is still absolutely shocking at conceding 81 goals. So they've clearly not patched up their defence. But they're marginally better, I think. Just it's not been the strongest at the bottom. I'm looking at these teams like Colchester, Sutton, and Forest Green Rovers. None of them have been great. If there were 3 relegation spots, I wouldn't complain because all of them should probably have been relegated this season. Because let's be honest, that wasn't even much of a relegation battle for most of it. And so Morecambe getting 58 points and finishing in 15th is sort of a damning indictment in a way, and sort of how mid-table this league has become for half of the teams, and then the other half seem it's a table of 2 halves. So it's the top half and the bottom half, isn't it? And I know it's a cliche and all, but it's definitely the case, I think, with Morecambe, but they were not good enough to be in that driving pile. 17th and went with NK Dons. Yeah, that was a bit of a mess up. They finished 4th. Yeah. I think they're a selling club, sorry, and I didn't really know what to expect to make about that because it could mean anything. But they did have they did bring in a new manager, didn't they? And they turned that ship around. So it's very hard to predict anything at the beginning of the season, no matter what. But I think if you look at it, they've had that season, which is they bottled the promotion, didn't they? On that, they were meant to get into there with a battle on their hands, and they did in the final few weeks bottle it. I think it was that result against Wrexham, actually, which tailed them off. But anyway, it was one of them things which they brought a new manager in, and suddenly results improved a lot. I think if they did stick with it, they would have probably ended up in one of them numerous clubs from 8th to 12th, which is going to be disappointed that they didn't reach the playoffs. But they did. But overall, they didn't get promoted from them, so I think they're still going to be a bit disappointed. 16th, we went with Walsall. I didn't really know what to think of Walsall coming into this season. Like, they were in a bit of a rut. I think we can all agree with that. But you know what? They did all right this season. I actually thought I had a split thought, and it went away very quickly, that what happens if they are the team with the outside chance of reaching the playoffs? Grimsby Town, I had 15th, and they actually finished 21st. Yeah, it's a hard team to predict, Grimsby. I mean, they did well in cup competitions last season, the season before. And so it was one of them things like, how much do you read the cup into the league? And I think I've learned my lesson this season, just gone, but you can't, because that just doesn't work. You see it with Boreham Wood, the season afterwards, they didn't do great. Although, on the other hand, you've got Marine, who did great in the Cup a few seasons back, and now they're in National League North next season. So maybe you should. But yeah, I mean, Grimsby, hard to judge. I'd like to see where they are in a few years' time. 13th, Forest Green Rovers, they finished 24th. Woeful season by FGR. And let's be honest, I think appointing Troy Deeney was a really, really bad decision. Like, awful decision. If you'd ever actually seen Troy Deeney as a player, you would know that he wouldn't be a good person to bring in as a manager. But no, yeah, I'm going to actually call that an end for part 1, actually, and come back in a few minutes because I need to have a break. Getting a bit thirsty and needing a toilet. But I will see you in the second part in about 5 minutes.